Well, Xbox has continued its crusade against emulators. Earlier this year, I think they made some adjustments to Xbox One because some people were like abusing the hardware to get emulators on there, and they were like, getting ROMs and like playing like every game ever on it. And Microsoft kind of realized that it's like, wow, this is a terrible legal issue, right? This is a real problem because emulation is illegal in spite of what these people say. Like we are allowing them to pirate video games on our hardware. So they released some updates, shut them down, and just recently they came out and I think patched out some workarounds and told, let's see, what did they tell them? They told the audience that, let's see, effective immediately, we are halting any and all retail mode emulation permanently. This channel will be deleted within the week, and this announcement will be moved to for preservation purposes without pings. A significant amount of users have been receiving 15-day suspensions as a warning from Xbox. We strongly recommend moving any and all emulator apps from your console in retail mode immediately. We apologize to anyone who got a 15-day suspension. We know it sucks. So the people who are like organizing, like you have to be part of a group to get into emulation. The people who are organizing, trying to like get emulators to work on Xbox, trying to get Nintendo games to run on Xbox, who are like working through all the glitches and the bugs and illegally getting the ROMs on this hardware that it's not supposed to be on. Like they are getting cracked down on. Like Microsoft does not want this stuff on their hardware because they know if Nintendo challenges them in court and addresses the fact that they are, unfair, like creating these loopholes intentionally to undermine their business, they are going to lose. I don't care how much money Microsoft has. I don't care what they do. Like it's pretty paper. It's very clear to everyone at this point that emulation is illegal, right? And that like all the loopholes that pirates use to justify their behavior are being closed off left and right. And so like Microsoft knows that like emulating Nintendo games on Xbox is a losing battle for them. That they are going to get fucked, and it very well might be ruin the Xbox brand entirely. So they're cracking down on it. They're trying to like close this off, and it's affecting the community. Like the community who needs to collaborate and like get all this stuff up and running instead of just buying a Switch. Like instead of just buying Nintendo hardware, we gotta do this and that. Like they are scrambling. They are upset, and of course, like I'm sure I'm sure there's like some justifications. Like I'm sure they're trying to like come up with something that'll work, something that'll like keep these emulators on Xboxes, that'll keep like the corruption going. But it is a dying industry. Like I do need to like come out and say this is that like we are in the era where internet piracy of video games is coming to an end. It's not like something you can just do anymore, right? You can't just like type it into Google and like get results or whatever. Like you have to jump through a bunch of hoops to get what you want, and sometimes it isn't even going to work properly. You have to deal with viruses. You have to deal with like real copyright protections. You have to deal with these companies coming to get you. You have to deal with so much, and you have to like kind of evasively. We're seeing more and more that like the community in general, like the gaming community, is really getting sick of pirates and their nonsense, right? Like I personally am really tired of seeing people try to say that like, oh, I pirated Tears of the Kingdom and I beat it in a week and it wasn't very good. Like I'm tired of seeing these people like put forward this nonsense that they're playing games ahead of time, that it runs better than it does on Switch, that they're having a way better time than you do, but oh man, I didn't enjoy the game anyway. Like so if they stop me from doing it won't affect me at all. It's so stupid. It's so unbearably obnoxious, and I for one will be glad when like companies make it very clear that the government is on their side and that they will start going after people who openly advocate for piracy, right? And we've already seen like people on Twitter get slammed for this, like that guy who like downloaded Tears of the Kingdom early on a Switch. Like he like pre-downloaded it and hacked the console to get it early. Like Reggie to access it early. Like Reggie Fils-Aimé called him out on it, and he had to delete his account because what he did was illegal, right? And that was just like a hacking the actual hardware. That's not even going into like downloading games, which I think is what typically we talk about when it comes to these kind of things. Like there are so many like illegal things going on in the piracy community and the emulation community. Like it's impossible really to even keep track of them all. Like it is embarrassing to see how often these people like just come out and try to make these wild claims that but like when you really look into them at all, you realize that like what they're doing it has to be illegal, right? Like how they say like specifically say, oh, Dolphin is how you play all the Wii and GameCube games like completely legally. But if you go on like their wiki, their official like how to use page, right? If you look at it, you'll realize that you need to have physical copies of the game and you need to have a homebrewed Wii. Like you need those two specific things in order to get your games onto your PC legally. And you just know that the vast majority of the audience don't do that. Like the vast majority of their audience just go through like alternative means to get a hold of this stuff, right? Like they're not paying $80 to like emulate Super Smash Bros. Melee or something. Oh, it's probably way more expensive these days, but they are they're getting desperate. They're getting things are getting worse and worse for like the pirates, and I don't think it's gonna last much longer, right? Like I do think like the glory days of pretending that Nintendo like doesn't support old software is are long gone, right? Like I would argue that was the case since like the VC era, right? Like back then, back when the Wii Virtual Console first came out, like basically all of the classic games were on Virtual Console. Those that weren't were easily attainable through the secondhand market. Like the whole argument that like oh some games become unavailable, like that is becoming less and less true every year, especially as Nintendo pads out NSO. Nintendo Switch Online with like every single game that's ever appeared on their hardware. Like I don't think people realize what that means. Is that like everything, good and bad, is going to be available on Nintendo Switch Online eventually. And I think that alone is kind of going to kill the piracy market because like if every game is available through the Nintendo Store, like why in the world would you ever bother with piracy? And we're in the early stages of that now. Like people still don't want to admit that like NSO is getting updated regularly, that there are like that many great games on the consoles, that like the support is that good, that the emulation is great. Like they're still making excuses and like trying to come up with justifications for their nonsense. But it is a dying narrative. And I think this recent happening with Xbox is a really good example of that.